This week we saw Joe Biden project weakness, never a good look for a world leader. At his State of the Union address, he ignored the disasters that his first year has brought upon this nation and all of us. Somebody who's been following these disasters closer than anyone, somebody who's one of the smartest people we know on this show, host of Human Events Daily, Jack Posobiec. Jack, you've been following the disasters of the Biden administration one after another. What's your take on the State of the Union?
Well, Benny, it's always a pleasure to be here. And, really as looking at the State of the Union as an American, as a citizen, as someone who's looking out at these disasters, who has a family like yourself, you're a family man. And we want to know who exactly is in charge of our country, because we all get the impression as we watch this thing that it ain't this guy who can barely finish a sentence. I mean, this was like when your iPhone is all the way at the end of the battery and it starts blinking and the signal starts going out and then it just dies and you get that flashing light that you need to plug it back in again. He could barely finish sentences. He was speeding so that he could race through without as many gaffes as possible. But it was gaffe city, gaffe after gaffe after gaffe. Didn't talk about Afghanistan, but fortunately, Representative Lauren Boebert was able to bring that up for him in our 13 honored dead from the Kabul airport. Won't talk about the fact that he cut and ran from the people of Ukraine the same way that he cut and ran from Afghanistan. And he barely even mentioned China, the 800-pound panda bear in the room, because apparently, well, I guess his son is just making too much money off of it.
So let's talk about Ukraine. No one's been covering it closer than you. Do you think that the people of Ukraine are comforted by the fact that Joe Biden thinks they're Iranian?
Yeah, I think that the people of Ukraine, if they're looking at this speech, they're going to start thinking, OK, we need to get better allies. We need to find friends elsewhere. This is not the guy that we want to be reassured for our national security from. This isn't a guy that we want doing security outside of like the local Dollar Tree. This is not somebody who projects fear, not someone who projects leadership. I mean, you could have easily had a very resolute presidential leader standing there saying, really taking up that mantle as the leader of the free world. And I know that Biden and his allies, like Chief of Staff Ron Klain, have tried to come out there and portray him as this FDR type of figure. And that's really what they were going for, trying to say, oh, we're going to stand up to Putin and treat him as if he's, the new Hitler and everything else. But it's just not working because, unfortunately, you're still dealing with Joe Biden. The material is just not there, right? The spirit is willing, but the flesh is, well, Joe Biden.
Well, yeah, that's very apropos, especially being that Joe Biden just recently wouldn't talk about his stance on abortion at the White House. Very interesting. Ash Wednesday this week. Joe Biden also breaking a number of commandments. Thou shalt not kill. Joe Biden got 13 Americans killed in Afghanistan in his disastrous and incompetent pullout of Afghanistan. Jack, you're a veteran, man, and Joe Biden didn't even mention Afghanistan or the deaths that his incompetence caused. As a veteran, I mean, obviously as a tactician politically and as somebody who really cares about this country, but as somebody who served, what does that say to you?
Well, look, in another era, you would have had maybe a gallery appearance and 13 seats, maybe 13 empty seats to signify the losses of our troops in the field during that day. Maybe some of the family members, invited there as a way to honor them, as to honor their sacrifices to our nation, as their commander in chief asked them and ordered them to be in that position. And yet we aren't that country anymore. And it really does feel that we've lost something as a country when we can't at least be honest to the American people, honest to ourselves and honest to the world about the things that are going on. Instead, we seek to hide these things. We hide the fact that we pulled out, that the 13 died. We hide the fact that what's going on in Ukraine, the absolute crisis, is because of this very same American weakness and foolish American foreign policy vis-a-vis the Ukrainians, and the same time that Joe Biden will sit there and he'll, fly a flag and wear a lapel pin, but at the same time, they're the ones who are being left in this situation.
Why would anyone sign up to serve in the armed forces right now?
Well, I do tell people that if you want to sign up for the armed forces right now, It's always a great jobs program. It's a great way to get an education. If you're looking for an education, it's a great way to get training. Sign up for something that you can get the skills that pay the bills in the private sector. Go for something like cybersecurity. Go for something like IT. If you want to be a linguist, go to school for that. You can get into it. But if you're someone who's going to sign up thinking that you're going to be defending the country under this administration or under these ridiculous generals that we have, like General Milley, who are going up there talking about woke studies and the implicit origins and roots of white rage, right, and critical race theory, right, you're really not going to be going in for the right program. So I think there's a lot of good to come from the military. I do think, by the way, that conservatives in general still should be going in, because at some point we're going to have to write that institution around the same way that we're going to have to write every institution around. But that being said, go in with clear eyes and understand the situation that you're going to be getting yourself into.
Your recent reporting, Jack, states that Joe Biden's speech might have actually buoyed Russian prospects in Ukraine, may have actually had the opposite intended effects. Can you illuminate for our audience?
Yeah, so I was getting some messages during the speech, and then even we saw across Telegram channels, both pro-Russian and pro-Ukrainian, that specific clip of, yes, Joe Biden did step on himself, and he said the word Iranians or Uranians or something, but he had a line just before that where he talked about Putin and Russian forces being able to encircle Kiev. Well, the problem with that is that Russian tanks have not, to this point, encircled Kiev, and Kiev is planning an extremely robust defense to try to prevent Russia from doing that. So essentially what Biden just did was completely undercut their defense efforts. They're planning for a massive potential siege or potential morale situation where they're going to have to defend their own capital city from Russian forces. But instead, Biden has essentially told them that they're going to lose and they're going to fail. So, of course, you had the pro-Russian channels after this were up there praising Biden's speech and saying that it was really an endorsement and a promotion of the Russian military operation. And then the Ukrainian channel saying, what the heck is this guy saying? We're planning to fight tooth and nail for our home, and this guy's selling us out.
It's extremely demoralizing, and watching the entire speech, it's what our first block was about, just weakness on the world stage. Our own Neville Chamberlain here. You are a defense expert, Jack, and I suppose I have a defense question for you. Do you believe that you can create a wall high enough to stop a vaccine? Is that possible from a defense perspective?
That depends, right? What kind of vaccine launcher are we talking about? Will it be a slingshot? Will it be a catapult? Perhaps some type of blow dart of some sort? Some kind of like Amazonian, blow dart kind of thing. I just don't know, but it really depends. Now, that being said, if we've got the wall with those steel slats, you might be able to get the vaccine through those if you time it properly.
Jack, thank you. I've been wondering that. I thought, wow, what a broad statement. You won't be able to build a wall high enough to stop our vaccines.
Where there's a will, there's a way. We're going to get those vaccines through that wall.
This is the kind of insight. This is why you bring Jack onto your shows. These are the kind of insightful commentary that you must have right now. It's a dangerous time. You got to know when the vaccine's coming at you and what kind of a wall you need to build to prevent yourself from getting it. Thank you, Jack.
Be careful.
All right. Thank you for joining us. Everyone follow Jack. He has an amazing show, an incredible podcast, and it is all around must follow on Twitter. Thank you, Jack.
Appreciate it, Benny. Honor to be on here.